And on the subject of the NFL, I mean, they've never been bigger. In times when broadcast TV is getting just kind of an afterthought, getting swallowed up, a lot of people never watch a broadcast series anymore. They're watching streaming or cable. The NFL ratings for the old traditional broadcast networks this past Sunday on Fox and CBS, both games drew more than, I think, upwards of 50 million viewers, and the NFL's ratings set a record. They were highest they had been in a number of years. So the NFL is still the gift that keeps on giving, and that's why the broadcast networks, if they didn't have the NFL right now, and if it someday goes away, I don't know who's going to watch them anymore on any given, it's still appointment TV on Sunday.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, but we are off the Bruce Springsteen train today, and we are talking TV with one of my favorite guests, Uncle Barky, Ed Bark. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well in these frigid times. It feels like I'm back in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we
feeling anymore in the winter.
Yeah, we are recording this on a very cold day here in the DFW area. I know my listeners from up east and the Midwest are laughing at us, but to us, 24 is cold. So
it's a colder region right now here.
Absolutely. So how's everything been going? It's been a couple of months since we talked. Everything's still going well?
Things are going well. Still vertical. Just had another birthday.
Congratulations and happy birthday.
I'm nearing the 3/4 century mark now. There seems to be no stopping this anymore. So one more year and I'm there.
Well, that's but you're still staying active. I see you on Twitter a lot, and you've agreed, just so listeners to know, Ed and I have talked about it, and just for fun, he and I are going to meet about every couple of months and just come up with a random topic, and basically it's just an excuse for us to visit. Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and as I mentioned before I hit recording, Mike Ducey, who is a local sportscaster here in the DFW area, was talking about when he was hired by the Channel 4 here in Dallas, that originally it was a CBS affiliate. And then when Fox Network started, this long-time CBS affiliate moved to Fox. And I just wanted to give your little thoughts about, because it's been long enough. I remember that, but for the forever, I moved into Dallas in 86. So it was a little bit after that, the NFL moved to Fox. So just if you can give me I know you covered that time period.
Yeah, we devoted a huge amount of attention to that because everybody was thinking, well, how are people going to find their programming now? Because CBS ended up on which used to be an independent station, KTVT, Channel 11, after Fox bought KDFW, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And it was a massive transition. And I remember Rupert Murdoch initially had bought these Metro Media stations, and believe it or not, Cowboys games were actually on which was then known as a UHF station in Dallas for Channel 33 for, I think, a couple of seasons before he then made this unprecedented move to buy some major CBS stations, including Channel 4. And everyone wondered at the time, well, okay, so how's that going to work? Although Fox had kind of proven himself beforehand that they could do the NFL because they had sort of a run-up on the other station, Channel 33. So I think, as I recall, they brought over the team of Summerall and Madden. And so the transition was pretty seamless in that regard. And then I know it seems like forever that Aikman and Joe Buck have been the principal team on Fox. But, at the start, it was entirely different. Aikman was still playing, I guess.
Yes, he was. Yeah. And I do remember that. And, they talked about that in the Madden documentary, and they showed a few clips of the ads where they are like, it's now going to be on Fox. My son, grew up, he's 31, or he'll be turned 32 this month. Even he was talking about, because he loves the history of sports, how much Fox changed things, the Fox bug and a very different pregame show. I mean, I grew up watching, CBS, NFL on CBS with everyone, but there was a brand new kind of vibe, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And everyone thought, okay, here comes the ruination of the NFL and so on. But they eventually settled into it's a louder show than it used to be on CBS when they had Brent Musburger and Phyllis George and I think Irv Cross and those people.
Jimmy the Greek.
Jimmy, the ill-fated eventually.
Yes.
Jimmy the Greek. But, they've had their team in place now on Fox for quite some time. I think Michael Strahan was the only new addition. That's been 5, 6, 7 seasons.
Oh, at least, yeah.
Right after he retired. So they're kind of traditional now too, although they're certainly livelier than the rather dreadful CBS pregame show, which I think is going to undergo some major changes. That thing seems totally archaic. And on the subject of the NFL, I mean, they've never been bigger. In times when broadcast TV is getting just kind of an afterthought, getting swallowed up, a lot of people never watch a broadcast series anymore. They're watching streaming or cable. The NFL ratings for the old traditional broadcast networks this past Sunday on Fox and CBS, both games drew more than, I think, upwards of 50 million viewers. And the NFL's ratings set a record. They were highest they had been in a number of years. So the NFL is still the gift that keeps on giving. And that's why the broadcast networks, if they didn't have the NFL right now, and if it someday goes away, I don't know who's going to watch them anymore on any given, it's still appointment TV on Sunday.
Yeah.
And of course, the Super Bowl remains on a broadcast network for now. I think eventually or inevitably that will change. But for now, you can still watch it, quote, free. One of the few major attractions you can do with anymore. You can't watch. I mean, the baseball playoffs are on. You have to have cable to get at least all the way up to the World Series. But all these games, the NFL's big showcase, they're all on broadcast networks, except for they made an exception this year. They had a Monday Night Football game on ESPN as one of the playoff games, but that's the only departure.
What? Any thoughts on Amazon getting into the game? That's going to be a little weird, isn't it?
It is, because, it used to be they would, simulcast. Now they're going to be the sole home of Thursday football. If you don't have Amazon Prime, you don't get to watch that game. Now, I don't know. I would think because in markets where the teams are playing, like if there's a Cowboys game on Monday Night Football, used to be one of the local broadcast stations would get the rights to that. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the same with Amazon Prime, whether because they're going to get at least one Cowboys game, I'm sure. Season. And I would think maybe that's still a deal that is going to result in, WFAA or Fox or somebody getting the game so that everyone can see it, but perhaps not. I'm not sure about that.
I remember once Dale Hansen, and for those of you who are outside of the area, Dale Hansen was the longtime ABC affiliate sportscaster. It was when the Cowboys were in a low period where ticket sales were down. And, it's been a long time since the Cowboys have had a blackout where the stadium did not sell out. So therefore the local station didn't show, the game. And Hanson make a joke like, and we'll be showing West Side Story, like he was going to be on a Monday Night Football game. It, I think it's great. And I know, according to Troy Aikman, talking to the guys in the ticket and reports that he's in conversations, I believe he is. I know he said he loves working with Joe Buck, and I think they are a great team. And even my son says, yeah, when Troy says the Cowboys sucks, it's because they suck. I hope they can work it where they two get to work together, but it would be kind of cool for him to work on Amazon as well.
Yeah, and that's not inconceivable.
Yeah.
It would make perfect sense because they do it now. I mean, they've got that team. When Fox had the Thursday night game for several years, it was
right.
For the most part Buck and Aikman. I think the big guy in play is Al Michaels, who nearing the end of it, or he's at the end of his contract. He's 77 years old. Hard to believe, but purportedly ESPN is wooing him pretty heavily for the Monday night game, which badly needs a jolt at this point. And then for Michaels, that'd be like going back home again because he previously did Monday Night Football. And he's remarkable. I still think if I had to choose between a broadcast team, I would still go Michaels and Chris Collinsworth a bit of an edge over Aikman and Buck. And then Romo and Jim Nantz are fun. Romo brings that incredible enthusiasm. He really does. You see him jumping up and down in the from the broadcast booth. So there's that too. He doesn't do as many predictions of plays as he used to.
No.
But they've got really solid teams there, and I think the only one in play now, Mike Tirico, would be the heir apparent if Michaels leaves.
Yeah.
Let's see. But then would they get Collinsworth to go with him? I don't know.
I did. Bob Costas had Michaels on his HBO show, and I thought that was a great interview.
Yeah.
And
remarkable. Al Michaels has never eaten a vegetable.
Yes, I thought that was
not only has he never eaten one, but if his steak, which apparently he dines only on steak, and there must be something to be said for that since he's 77 and still
man looks great.
He says he will take it. He will tell them to throw the steak out. He doesn't want it because he fears the juices from the vegetable might seep somehow into the steak. And that's just something he can't handle.
Yeah, I think so. That was a fun interview. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I agree. In fact, the other day, Chris brought a pad out and he says, every time Romo says, "Oh, Jim," I'm going to make a mark and see. And we have fun with that. Yeah, I think Romo's done well. The Cowboys just seem to do pretty well at being broadcasters. And give me your thoughts. I know that when Aikman was a player, his interviews came across a little wooden and very stiff. And I guess he's talked about it, that not being the quarterback of Dallas Cowboys gave him a little more freedom to talk. But before that, he was always very mindful of what he was representing.
No question. It was very much an open question how good Aikman would be as an analyst. Would he be too bland? And he's turned out to be just fine. And I'm enjoying him more as time goes on.
Yeah.
I think he can be a little predictable in what he says from time to time, but he is opinionated.
Yes.
A little calmer in the booth, to say the least. Tony Romo.
Yeah.
But you're right about these ex-Cowboys, because Daryl Johnston is still a pretty prominent member of the Fox team, and they're scattered all over the the NFL network. Michael Irvin is a big presence there, certainly.
Yes.
They've done quite well in the broadcast booth.
They have. So switching over to music, one of the things I said I wanted to talk to you about is, the evolution and the thoughts of halftime shows. So, and for those of you who aren't sure, hopefully you've listened to other episodes with Ed, but Ed was the longtime TV critic for the Dallas Morning News. And then after he retired, had his online column for a fair amount of time too. Yeah. So he's been covering TV in every form possible. So people talk a lot about the halftime shows and how sometimes they're ridiculous, sometimes they're good. Let's just talk a little bit about the evolution. Like, was it ever a big deal when you were covering, or was it just kind of a side note early days of the NFL Super Bowls?
In the early days, it was very much sort of a throwaway. I'm not even sure if they showed the whole halftime show because it was marching band and Up with People.
Right.
And people like Al Hurt and Pete Fountain did an uncommonly large number of Super Bowl halftime shows. Even Carol Channing did a couple of them, if you can imagine that. And one year, that I don't remember how they did this, they had George Burns and Mickey Rooney as part of the halftime show. And probably the nadir of all halftime shows, the worst, was the whole show was done by an Elvis impersonator known as Elvis Presto. That was 1989. And
that late?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was considered to be sort of a breakthrough where they were sort of getting into, rock music or pop music, because it had been nothing but, the Grambling State Marching Band was on a lot. Up with People, you can't get more squeaky, icky.
Right. I remember those. Yes.
4 or 5 of them. But they didn't, the modern era really of the big entertainer and the current day pop music entertainer didn't happen until 1993 with Michael Jackson was the first to kind of break through that mold. And ever since then, with a couple of misses down in subsequent Super Bowls, it's been pretty much, rock acts, rap acts, pop performers. And, it's, to me, it's gotten so packaged and obviously lip synced in most cases that it's more spectacle to me than musical entertainment. I mean, some of them have really been good. Prince, I thought, was still my favorite. He actually did Purple Rain in the rain, a substantial rain during a Super Bowl. And I thought U2, they were the halftime show right after 9/11. Very emotional. That was a very strong one. I have to say, Bruce Springsteen has done one. I don't remember a whole lot about it, whether it really stood out. You probably do.
Yeah.
More than I do.
Yeah. They opened with 10th Avenue Freeze Out. He did Working on a Dream, Born to Run, and then Glory Days. Kind of a short little set. Obviously, my fan base, my listeners always want to put Bruce as the top show. I think, and you named the other two, I think U2 after 9/11 and where they showed the names of all the victims and Bono's flag, inside his jacket. Yeah. I agree with Prince. I think that was amazing. And then I throw Bruce in there in the discussion. I think, McCartney was certainly interesting. The Who was interesting. I mean, you cycle through. What do you remember as a journalist with the whole Janet Jackson and all that brouhaha? I mean, that really caused a lot of problems for radio stations, and especially the Ticket talked about how much the FCC kind of got on their ass.
Well, yeah, with CBS was the network that year.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the game at home, and like many, I'd say about 85, 90% of viewers never noticed it at all. And all of a sudden, something lights up. I don't think I guess Twitter might have been in its very early stages, but the internet, as it were, lit up. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I've got to run to the paper, go, rush downtown and write a story on this, something that I really didn't notice at the time, but then was becoming this massive, quote, controversy. And yeah, CBS was running scared for, in fact, the next Super Bowl they did was considered a safe choice, and Paul McCartney was considered,
Right.
he's not going to do any nipple reveal or anything like that. And even if he did, so what?
Right.
They were really running scared from the FCC for a year or more, and had a very dampening effect on broadcast content across the board. Because all of a sudden you got all these people, oh, this is obscene, and these networks have been getting away with this for too long, and blah, blah, blah. And so, even though it was a minuscule little thing, in reality, it had huge repercussions.
It really did. And Justin Timberlake and her, like, right, it's just like, what do we do? What do you talked about the spectacle, and and I kind of tend to go, if I knew the artist, I'm interested. If not, I'm okay. It's been a long drought since the Cowboys have even been close to a Super Bowl, so I am a casual viewer at best. As you talk about this, the NFL is a golden goose. The amount of coverage you get, on the game day. I mean, you have a pre-show of a pre-show, and then you have an after show. It is just ridiculous.
It is, but advertisers are willing to pay for it, and people who just have the set on. I mean, they're having a party or whatever, ready to have a party, and the TV's just on. And what else are you going to put on? There's going to be, I guess, the Puppy Bowl or whatever, like somewhere. It is too much, obviously, but we've known that for a long time, and it's not going to stop. It's certainly not going to shrink or get smaller. The thing I wish would shrink, halftime shows now, there's so much spectacle. The people in the stadium, for the most part, they're going to have to watch it on a big screen. They can't see the show.
Right.
I wish that they would do it maybe an indoor or an outdoor venue outside the stadium, right near the stadium, where whoever is performing could actually do it live the way they would in a concert, without all the attendant histrionics and lights and whatever gimmicks they have to come up with now to make a visual splash as well as an audio impression, and try it that way. I would love to see, like, if Springsteen returned and he were in, maybe a 10,000 seat venue or less than that, a theater, and they would just say, here's the halftime show, and he would play for 15 minutes and not have to, do any fireworks or any of that stuff, concentrate on the music. But we probably are beyond the point of that ever happening, I guess, because the Super Bowl halftime show, it's almost like hosting the Oscars now. It's kind of a thankless job. You get big exposure, and believe it or not, these guys, they don't get paid for this. All their expenses are paid, but the artists are not paid to do the halftime show. And for a while, the NFL actually wanted a cut of their residual sales from the Super Bowl, and that didn't happen.
Right.
I just think there's so much pressure on these artists, and with the internet and Twitter and whatever being the way it is, they're going to get ripped invariably. Oh, I hate this show, like 5 minutes in, and then you're going to have this big, oh, you're just an old person who, you're mad that it's not Lawrence Welk or somebody. And so I wish they would downsize it. But again, that's, I'm sure, is wishful thinking, because I'd like to see a real show, a real music show, not just, now they're going to have 5 artists for the latest. Super Bowl. Like,
whether it's
forward to, I think it could be fairly interesting and good, because I think they will have to perform it live. Or the rappers, certainly. I don't know if Eminem can lip sync or Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, because like I think when you just mentioned some of the best, right? That Prince or U2 were just out there just performing. Just it's not a necessarily, and I realize you need glitz and glamour, but that's a good idea. Because I've had people on the podcast, a couple of people were there at Tampa and they were part of the volunteers and they practice, you have to come out, you have to set up that stage, you have to get everything ready. The band has to perform, and then you got to take everything off in a set amount of time, like clockwork, to make that. And so if you had it set up outside, you actually could almost logistically, you could do a pre-game show, with the band, and then cut to a moment like this is where we're going to go, show that 15 minutes, then come back to the stadium, and then everyone in the audience could hear even a longer set. So that would be fun.
Yeah, because the halftime is about twice as long as it is for a regular NFL game. It said you have to set things up first.
Yeah.
So there's no way you do this in 15 minutes. It's at least a half hour, maybe longer. Probably has a certain effect on the teams. Maybe they get. It'd be interesting. I don't know if any study has ever done about how they look in the initial stages of the second half, whether they look rusty and whatever. But it's an artificial thing that happens only once a year in terms of the break between the first and second halves.
We also get, it's also a lot of hype about who's going to do the Star Spangled Banner, and there is usually music, pregame show. I think the ultimate someone made fun of is switching like the pregame for the Kentucky Derby compared to how long the actual race is. Like it would be like,
that's even more absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like you'd have 48 hours of Super Bowl thing if it was the same thing. But I'm guilty. Lynn and I usually have it on the background of, for Derby Day, and because we had gone to the stadium before, and big fans of the tourism in Kentucky because of all the bourbon distilleries.
I will say one Super Bowl halftime show that I liked because I thought they actually achieved the spectacle was Katy Perry. I thought her show was extremely inventive, and I think it was just her. There may have been other artists involved. I don't remember, but I remember visually it was quite something. And that one, I thought it worked, but I don't know. I wish they're never going to take my advice, obviously.
Well, yeah.
But man, I'd love to see an actual musical show stripped of all the showy elements.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the same thing. Charlotte Jones has a thankless job. She is Jerry Jones' daughter, for those of you guys who aren't from the DFW area, and she is the one in charge of other things, marketing, but she organizes the Cowboy halftime show for Thanksgiving, which is always a big deal. It kicks off the Red Kettle, and it is hard to find an artist that's wants to come in, play that short of a set. And it's difficult to get someone that we as an audience don't go, oh, that's cool. A lot of times we just go, really? That's who it is? And I know the guys on Intentional Grounding, a local sports station, one of the shows on the ticket, always make fun of her about who they're getting.
It's kind of been downsized, I think, in the last couple of years. We haven't had any really big name, I recall.
No, I remember Sheryl Crow multiple years ago, which was a pretty big deal. Yeah. So one of the things that used to matter, and I'm curious from your perspective, does it still, when networks were a thing, and they would debut a new series, or they would have a special episode of an existing series post the Super Bowl. That doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think it helps any more than the so-called Olympics platform. networks invest a huge amount of promotional money into advertising during the summer or winter Olympics.
Yeah.
Use it as a launch pad. And for the most part, it's just not the same audience. And I can remember one year, did Fox ever have the Olympics? I thought it was some big thing. And
Okay.
they just heard a lot of it was a show, I think it was called Skin. And they just devoted tons and tons of promotion to it. And it arrived DOA. It was like canceled after 3 weeks or something. And I just don't think there's much of a carryover. If anything, people get sick of seeing the same promos over and over during the Olympics. If you're watching 2 weeks worth of Olympics, you're going to see that promo 50 times or more. There's certainly a sampling that goes on of shows. It probably doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's really, there's much of a carryover effect anymore.
Because I know in the past, like they had a Friends episode that was pretty famous.
Yes.
They've premiered other shows after it. But I think just the way as you talked about, the network has just lost so much. And, even looking at the Emmys, it's very rare that a actually network show, because almost everything is either HBO or AMC or, Showtime or, even Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, you just name them.
Netflix, Apple TV Plus, which is just huge in just the last 2 years. Some really great series. The broadcast, the allure. God, when I first started, it was basically 3 broadcast networks. Fox wasn't even here yet. There was no cable to speak of in Dallas back in 1980. So they had 90% of the audience still back in 1980. And now, gosh, I mean, what is their percentage? Maybe on a good night, 20%. People are watching TV on their own time, and broadcast network TV is pretty much dead to me, except for a local newscast or the network evening newscast and sports, and maybe a big award show like the Oscars or the Emmy. That's it. I mean, I really don't watch broadcast networks at all anymore. I haven't seen any of their new series in the last year or so.
Well, I know one of the things that has surprised people, and I did jump on that bandwagon pretty early, is CBS's Ghosts. The lead actress was on the CWI Zombie, which I think CW, and I really liked that series. It had a nice tone, kind of funny, a good thing, different take on a zombie genre. And so I watched the episode just because of her, and it's turned out to be something charming, and it's kind of found a lot of buzz. I don't know how that translates in viewers, but I know Variety did a special, did an article about it a couple weeks ago or this week, that the CBS executives are kind of, what? We have a show that's on TikTok that has a TikTok following?
Yeah, astonishing. Well, but now they're, in terms of Paramount Plus, which they're more interested really in reality marketing that.
Yeah.
Where you see some of these CBS shows, like Evil is just exclusive.
Yeah.
Paramount Plus, and also now they've renewed SEAL Team.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, that was on a broadcast network for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
It'll be exclusively on Paramount TV, and I wonder if or Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
I wonder if Ghost has, a large part of its audience comes from watching
it. I bet you it does, because like The Good Fight is on that, and I really enjoy. It's become, in fact, there's plans about doing a Star Trek channel that's a spinoff of Paramount Plus, because there's so much, Star Trek information.
5 new Star Trek series are Paramount Plus. They also the Frasier reboot, which has been, sort of start and stop for several years. Apparently now it's finally going to be a reality, but it's not going to be on a broadcast network. It's going to be on Paramount Plus. You got Kelsey Grammer and but apparently do not have David Hyde Pierce. And so and I don't know if Jane Leeves will be a part of it. And of course, now I'm terribly blanking on the actor who played Frasier's, the Crane's father, but John Mahoney, he's deceased. So it'll be quite a different show, I imagine. Probably not even set in Seattle anymore.
Right.
But it's going to a streaming network.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Is there anything you're watching right now, Ed, that you're enjoying?
We've been watching American Rust on Showtime, and watched 4 episodes so far. Still kind of thinking it's not bad. It's with Jeff Daniels, kind of a semi-murder mystery. The Gilded Age right now, from Julian Fellows, creator of Downton Abbey, just started on HBO. Been watching that. Vintage Julian Fellows, he does the same show over and over, but he writes very well. This one's set in New York. And so it's a different setting, at least. You don't have the British accents.
Yeah.
And they've been able to work in a woman of color, so that's different too. But a very good series so far, very watchable. Been watching that. Let's see what else series-wise. Waiting for all these Apple TV Plus shows.
Yeah, me too. I know you and I both are big For All Mankind fans. I just think that's so well done. Just so well written, so well acted, and it's such a great period piece that, and I think just the unique concept of if the Soviet Union had landed on the moon first, how that would have changed. And they've done a great job of tweaking it just a little. It isn't so it's totally unrecognizable, but it's just, I think, very creative.
Yeah, very, very underrated Emmy-wise. I hope it will get, more recognition as time goes on.
Yeah.
We did Nightmare Alley last night, which again, HBO Max has so many new movies that either will open in theaters and simultaneously open on HBO Max or within a week or two. And and Bradley Cooper is a star of that. And that's a great period movie, I thought. Long, it's 2.5 hours, but it's just recreates the carny area or carnival era of the late 1930s, early 40s. And so I would highly recommend that.
Oh,
and
good.
I did guess the, quote, astonishing ending a third of the way through.
Okay, good for you.
But it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I could have watched it. I could have, that would have made a good series to me.
Yeah.
You could easily turn Nightmare Alley into a weekly series on HBO.
I will check that out. I watched the first episode of Reacher last night. And I thought it was pretty good. I know there's been a little bit of complaints about the lead actor who was on the HBO Titans. And I thought he was pretty good in that. I've only read a couple of the Jack Reacher novels, but it was enough that I thought it was a pretty good startup.
Interesting you should mention that. I have not seen it yet.
Yeah.
I thought America's ready to just sit back and watch a muscle man around.
And that's exactly what this is.
It's just like walking tall.
Yes, it is.
But so what? It's like people are, I do think we're in times where it's, gosh, there's so much television that preaches at you, and we got to get past that. There's just a lot of stuff that's, correct for one reason or another. This show looks like a complete throwback, but something that you say, I'm ready for that. I just don't want to be, have to think about a cause or is that correct? Or should I complain about this because they're doing this? And so I hope that in the coming years, we will get back a little more to entertaining above all. And it doesn't mean that you can't have messages or merit or, in addition to a very entertaining drama or comedy, but I think we can't keep on this route, because people I think, they're tired of COVID. They're tired of all the attendant drama that goes with it and the political divide, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree with you. I very much so. Well, Ed, as always, I appreciate the time. We will do this again in a couple of months. Your Uncle Barky on Twitter. You still do a pretty good job of giving good commentary on either sporting events or on different things, and you're always pushing for more diversity in the cable news network, and I applaud that.
Yeah, we didn't even get around to that. The Jeff
Yeah.
Zucker resignation at CNN, which is,
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
yeah, it comes at a time when they're trying to launch CNN Plus in a couple of months, spending a lot of money on that, a lot of promotional effort. God
Yeah.
knows if it's going to work. I don't know. I don't see how it works, but who knows?
Yeah.
And, so now they've got to find somebody to take that network, I think, in a new direction.
Brian Williams resigned, for now retired. I'm sure he'll do something else.
He reportedly turned down the CBS Evening News job that Nora O'Donnell currently.
Wow.
He said, I'm not interested in that kind of thing anymore, which kind of shows, again, that used to be the holy grail. You get one of those 3 chairs.
Sure, yeah.
Your career, you've reached the top of the mountain of your news career. Now it's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to do that.
Which is kind of funny. You're right. Well, all right. Thank you, sir. You appreciate it. Stay warm. We will visit again soon. Listeners, hope you are staying warm during this code time. Enjoy the Super Bowl and all that's going. Do you have a prediction on who you think will win, Ed?
Yeah, I'm going to stick my neck out and say that Joe Burrow is the real thing, and he's going to find a way to win that game. But it wouldn't surprise me if it went entirely the other way. But I'll say Cincinnati in a close game.
Yeah, I as a Cowboy fan, I've got no horse in this race, though. I love Stafford because he grew up in the DFW area, big ticket fan. But I originally am from Louisiana. My sister and all my family bleed LSU, so it would be a great story. This kid from LSU, to come back, and they were talking about the Triple Crown, that no quarterback has ever done a national championship and Heisman and a Super Bowl. There's 2 or 3 other, like Dorsett did it as a running back, but no quarterback has ever done it before.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
And people people don't forget, but I mean, a year ago, he was recuperating from what looked like it could be almost a career-ending injury, a severe, tear, and they cart him off. And the fact that he's in a Super Bowl a year later is, again, with a long dormant franchise.
Yeah.
Has never won a Super Bowl. So it'll be a first for. They've been in 2 other ones, and they've lost both of them in close ones. So for that reason, also, I guess I'd like to see Cincinnati maybe finally break through.
That sounds great. All right, everyone, we will talk to you soon. We will have Uncle Barky back on in a couple of months. Thanks, guys. Bye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts, as well as a Merry Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now, who does? You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only, Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.